This is Current Reflections, a production of Tribal College, Journal of American Indian Higher Education.
For this installment of Current Reflections, we are joined by longtime Tribal College leader Tom Shortbull. From a long line of Lakota leaders, Shortbull served as president of Oglala Lakota College for over 30 years. He was a member of AIHEC's board of directors when Congress passed the Tribally Controlled Community College Act of 1978, and he interfaced with the federal government through multiple administrations. Moreover, Shortbull was elected to the South Dakota Senate in 1982, the first American Indian to serve in that capacity. During his years as a senator, he worked to expand Native voting rights and was a principal advocate for the enforcement of the Voting Rights Act. Throughout South Dakota and Indian country more broadly, he is known as a forceful champion for Indian people and a man who is unafraid to call out injustice wherever he sees it. Thanks for joining us, President Shortbull. We're honored to have you here to share your insights and wide-ranging experiences on advocacy.
Well, thank you.
So let's begin. You started your tenure as president of Oglala Lakota College in 1975 during the administration of Gerald Ford and the 94th Congress. This was 3 years before the TCU Act and when tribal colleges were still in their infancy. As a member of the AIHEC board, how did the organization interface with the federal government during those years? And what were some of the effective advocacy strategies at that time?
Well, mostly we were in a contract situation with a mainstream institution. In our case, it was Black Hills State College in Spearfish and the University of South Dakota. So we used their curriculum and gave the credits that went to students at that time came from Black Hills State College and the University of South Dakota. So when we awarded degrees, they were jointly issued from both Oglala Lakota College. At that time, it was, my recollection was Lakota Higher Education Center, and along with the state diploma.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about, at that time in the 70s, this is before the TCU Act was passed. What was advocacy like in AIHEC during that time?
Well, it was really a great advocacy group. We had Lionel Borno, we had Jim Shanley, and we had Dave Gibb, and these are all kind of giants in the era of advocacy, and so we had the best of Indian people at that time, including myself, that were really a forceful presence to advocate for Indian people.
Okay, and in your recollection of the passage of the TCU Act, you were mentioning earlier about Felix Cohen. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, Felix Cohen had the law firm that we went through. Gerald Onefeather had employed him as a lawyer for the Oglala Sioux tribe, along with William Sudow. And Sudow was an aide to Congress, the Congress committee that had oversight over Indian affairs. And so we had the best of the best with Shifter and Sudow, and they knew how to get things done. And that advocacy, that assistance with that advocacy was really instrumental in having the success that we have. I guess the thing about Sudow is that our Richard Shifter and Cohen, there's actually a nursing home on the Pine Ridge Reservation that is named in his honor, the Cohen Nursing Home.
Okay. So, and then with the passage of the act, so it was President Carter who signed it into law, but he wasn't the most forceful advocate of it, right?
No, he wasn't. I think he had so many things going on. He had a lot of problems at that time, and so Mondale, William Mondale, Walter Mondale was the vice president, and he was a really advocate. And I recalled when I was at a conference in Minneapolis with the Woodlands tribes hosting the conference, the American Indian Higher Education Conference, and he talked about how that was one of the best things that he did in his career was to advocate and finally to get Jimmy Carter to sign the legislation. So we owe a huge debt of gratitude to Walter Mondale.
Let's fast forward 20 years when you were reappointed OLC president in 1995. What were some of the most profound changes in the political scene and with advocacy that struck you, and how had things evolved during that interval?
Well, with our college, I have to, I was president for 4 years, in it was 1975 to 79, and then there was a group of about 6 who, you might say that I was a little bit paranoid about what happened to me, but there was 6 of them that basically banded together and made me look weak to the Board of Trustees, and they did an exceptional job. And a new president was appointed after I had to step down because I resigned because it was an unworkable situation. And so that was kind of the history of how I left the college. And then in 1986, was it 86 that I came back? 88.
Yeah, well, I think, well, at least according to our history books here at the Journal, it was 95 that you were reappointed, but
Oh,
maybe
95, correct. It was 95 that I came back. And so what confronted me then, I decided to interview all of the key staff members, center directors and head of departments. And I was just shocked that they said that they believed that there had been embezzlement at the college. And sure enough, about a year later, there was an indictment that came down that brought an indictment against the vice president for business and the assistant vice president. So that was, it hit me, coming in a second time and having this major crisis that I had to deal with. But I did an exceptional job of getting the college through that major embarrassment. And once we got behind the embarrassment and the bad press over $2.6 million being embezzled from the college, we went straight ahead, and there were many major accomplishments through years under my administration.
yeah. As far as like the national political scene and in the 90s, mid 90s, 1995, when you came back in AIHEC's advocacy strategies, do you remember any major shifts, or what was the landscape like then?
Well, yeah, 95 was the I can't recall now, but it it required us to be more forceful in our presentations to Congress, and we were able to do that. and the advocacy with AIHEC, major things were accomplished.
Okay, and then tell us a little bit about your election to the South Dakota Senate. So this was a historic moment. You were the first Native legislator in the state. What was that like? And what was the reception? What were some of the greatest challenges? And how did you advocate effectively, considering that some of the people in the legislature at that time, and let's face it, were bona fide racists?
Well, the great irony is that I was director of the task force on Indian state government relations from 1973 to 75. And one of the things that we had studied was that there was gerrymandering in the area of the Pine Ridge and Rosebud Reservation. Instead, those two large counties, Todd on the Rosebud Reservation and Shannon on the Pine Ridge Reservation, should have been put into one legislative district where you could have elected an Indian person. Instead, for the history of South Dakota, for previous to that, the previous 20 years, it was divided into three separate counties. The net effect was you couldn't elect an Indian person because there wasn't a majority of Indian people. And I had put out a report when I was on the task force on Indian state government relations that Congress should be apprised of this, and that there should be a legislative district that was reapportioned that would have Todd and Shannon be part of a legislative district. And at that time, there was the U.S. Civil Rights Commission was working, and they came out with a report to Congress that this was, in fact, a gerrymandering of the Indian vote, and that Congress should correct it. And as a result of that, Congress did pass in 1983 a legislation that required that the state of South Dakota, in order for their reapportionment plan to be approved, they had to accept that a legislative district would comprise Todd and Shannon County. Now, once they were consolidated into one legislative district, 83% of the population was Indian, and so it gave an excellent opportunity for a candidate to Indian candidate to become the first state representative in South Dakota and or in the South Dakota Senate, and I was able to accomplish that.
Yeah, and you were telling a story about when you were there in the Senate, and I believe there was some sort of legislation that was put forth to increase the salary of the governor, and tell us that story about what happened. And I think it illuminates some of the challenges maybe that you were encountered.
Yeah, it was really interesting because they got up and it was almost a done deal. I mean, they had all the Republican votes, and I think at that time they had 25 to 27 of the 35, maybe 24, and there were 11 Democrats. So they clearly had the votes to get it passed. And but I got up and said, well, the governor's getting an increase, but what about our teachers across the state of South Dakota? Why can't they? If he's getting an increase, the governor is, Governor Bill Janko. Why can't the teachers in South Dakota get a raise? And you could only hear it on the floor of the Senate in the gallery. I don't think they heard it, but this senator said, if you don't like it, go back to where you came from. So he's basically telling me to get back to the Pine Ridge Reservation and mind my own business.
Tom Shortbull was South Dakota's first American Indian senator. He also served as president of Oglala Lakota College for over 30 years. We'll be back with Current Reflections in just a moment.
Yate, this is Marvin Tom, the advertising coordinator for the Tribal College Journal. Since 1989, TCJ has earned a loyal following of readers who are passionate about American Indian education. Our dynamic media outlet reaches a diverse, wide-ranging market, including students, educators, and lawmakers. And here's the best part, TCJ offers a variety of reasonable price advertising options that can be placed in our magazine, on our website, or right here in our Current Reflection podcast. For more information, contact me at 970-764-4238 or at marvin@travelcollegejournal.org. Yeah.
You're listening to Current Reflections, and I'm speaking with the Honorable Tom Shortbull on advocacy. So, in regard to Indian people, what would you say were some of your major accomplishments when you were serving in the Senate, and how were they achieved?
Well, some of the major accomplishments was that it wasn't so much that major accomplishments for Indians, but there was a nursing program at the University of South Dakota, and at that time, it was providing the backup support to a tribal college on the Pine Ridge Reservation, the Oglala Lakota College's nursing program, and they had decided to. The president of the University of South Dakota had decided that he didn't want any degrees that were associate degrees. He wanted everything to be a bachelor's degree that you would have at a major university. He wanted to have South Dakota be the greatest baccalaureate producing program in the country. And so he took action to have the legislature stop funding the nursing program, not using state funds to support the nursing program at the the University of South Dakota. And I was able to get, and surprisingly, I was able to get major support from the Republicans because they had nurses in their own home districts who had previously graduated, and those that were at the University of South Dakota getting ready to get their degrees, and they felt that this would be a major detriment to producing nurses in the state of South Dakota to do away with the University of South Dakota's nursing program. And we got that passed, and we got it passed so that it was basically veto-proof. If you could get 2/3 or more votes in both bodies, the governor could do nothing about it. And so I recall that it had passed the Senate. It passed the Senate by like 27 votes, and more than enough to have it get approved. Then it went to the House side, and I told the pager were people who gave messages to the legislators. When the bill came up on the floor of the House of Representatives, that he was to come get me because I wanted to see the discussion, and hopefully it would pass. And as I was walking there, I noticed Governor Janko was outside of the chambers there, and I recall what he said at that time, and he said, "What in the hell are they doing in there?" Because there was many people that got up and spoke on behalf of the 2-year nursing program at the University of South Dakota, and they supported it. And so the bill was passed, and I think Bill Janko, after that, I was on his, as they say, on his shit list, because he never treated me very well after that was passed on the House side.
You have collaborated effectively with both Democrats and Republicans. What is the key to success in working with lawmakers who maybe aren't big supporters of tribal colleges or even of Indian country more generally?
Well, I think you have to challenge them on what is right. how we've been treated in this country. My parents went to St. Francis Indian School, and my mother was one of the smartest students in her class. And she had no opportunity to go to a college. She was sent off instead to Haskell Indian School, and she graduated from there with honors and was an exceptional worker, a great. But the limitations at that time for my mother was the only thing she could go into was being a secretary, and she was worked in federal services for 30 years, and eventually rose to be a contract officer in the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So she was, one of the smartest people I ever known, and for her not to be able to get a college degree was something that I thought was just a travesty to Indian people. And so when we were able to get tribal colleges to give our Indian people degrees that they could go into being teachers and various other professional positions, that was a major advance on the Indian reservations across the United States that have tribal colleges. And the tribal colleges do a great job in providing the degree educations for students to be, nurses and teachers and other professional positions. And so it's been a major, major benefit to Indian country that the tribal colleges came along and were able to help Indian people to be successful.
So we're kind of in some chaotic times right now. As a longtime TCU leader and as a former lawmaker, can you please share your assessment of the current political moment?
Well, Donald Trump is like a wrecking ball, trying to have everything his own way. But I was really impressed by the current president of AIHEC, Dr. Rose, when a news report came out that $40 million was approved by Congress to continue the funding for tribal colleges. And so Dr. Rose had to do a fantastic job of lobbying that bill through Congress, and I applaud her for a job well done. But on the whole, all we can hope for is that his last 3 years go really quickly, and that we get a new president, whether it's Democrat or Republican, that bring us back to the norms of how we do things in a civilized society. Right now, it's Trump's mantra is to be a wrecking ball and just go after things that he doesn't like, and then support things that he does like. And it's just a terrible situation that the country is in, and all we can do is hope that his term in office ends in 3 years, when hopefully a Democratic president will be elected to the presidency of the United States.
So, for tribal college leaders who have recently taken the helm as presidents or chief academic officers, what parting advice can you offer? How do we best navigate these times?
Well, you always have to take into consideration that in many cases, on our reservation, the high schools do not produce good students for us. I recall that we implemented a 10th grade reading requirement to enter into Oglala Lakota College. I, in fact, had discussed this with a woman that was with a vocational school in Iowa, and told her that I felt that we needed to put a 10th grade reading requirement. And she said, don't do it, because in her belief that the minority students couldn't reach the level of a 10th grade reading level. And I disagreed, and we implemented a system that students to this day when they come into Oglala Lakota College, they need to take a proficiency exam. At what grade level are they at? And if they're at not at 10th grade reading level, we then put them into our remedial education program. They can't get it for college credit, the remedial education, but we can move people that have 8th grade reading levels to 10th grade reading levels. But we have great we had great difficulties, and I think it still exists, is that if you have a student that comes to a college with a 6th or 7th grade reading level, it's virtually really difficult to get them to a 10th grade reading level, which we, the college, believes you have to have a 10th grade reading level to be successful in college. And so we've instituted that, and then we do, if a student is at an 8th grade reading, we put them into our remedial program, and we can get them to 10th grade reading level, but if they're less than that, it's almost virtually impossible to get them to a 10th grade reading level. And it's really sad that across the nation that they don't do a testing at every grade level. I know in the Rhapsody school system, they do that here in South Dakota. And so you, as parents, you can know how your student is progressing, but a lot of that testing isn't done in some of the smaller schools, and a lot of times isn't done in the reservation schools. And so it's a major challenge for tribal colleges if students are coming through the elementary and secondary institutions with less than a 10th grade reading level. It's really a challenge to get them to the 10th grade reading level, but we do get them there. There are successes, and so it's not it's not impossible to get a student to a 10th grade reading level. And to me, I always remember that saying, reading is fundamental, and you can read, you can go anywhere, and if you can't read, you're really at a disadvantage for having success in your lifetime if you don't have a good reading level.
Yeah, and just when we were speaking earlier, you mentioned part of your philosophy was challenging students. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I think that's one of the problems, is that because of the poor economic circumstances that Indian people come from, there's a kind of a situation where teachers pity Indian people. The worst thing that you can do is pity Indian people and Indian students. You've got to have a positive outlook to helping them and saying that if you work hard, you can succeed. And to see a student that maybe was reading at an 8th grade level, and then they go through our remedial reading classes and can get to a 10th grade and then eventually graduate. I'm the remarks at the college was, Tom's a real sourpuss, always kind of doesn't look happy. But when those students go through that line, and some of the students that have gone through our remedial program and then graduate with a college degree, it is the greatest feeling that a person can have on this earth when you see those students succeed like that, and to overcome all the obstacles to achievement and make that achievement. It is one of the most precious things that I've had in my lifetime, and I still cherish that today. Through today.
Yeah, that's I tried never to miss the Navajo Tech graduations, because it really is a incredible moment. Well,
just to see the smiles on the faces of those students, and then when they go and get hugged by their parents, I mean, it just puts bring tears to your eyes many times in my case.
Yeah. Well, Hey, I want to thank you for joining us. And, I hope the AIHEC conference is going to be in Bismarck this coming spring. So maybe we'll see you up there.
I I could be, but it's probably unlikely. So it was nice working you with on this interview that we've done this morning, and I want to thank you for thinking of this and including me in this program today, because it's a message that really needs to be out there in Indian country, that no matter what your circumstances, if you try hard, and even if you weren't at the 10th grade reading level, there is resources for you to get you to that. But it does require students to exceptionally work hard, but it's possible. And as long as you have that possibility of success, then it makes your world or your life a possibility for success rather than failure. And I've always was most proud of, as I said before, when a student came through the line and got a diploma from me, and I knew they had gone through our reading program to get to 10th grade reading level, and then actually get a diploma with families and brothers and sisters. It's just one of the most cherishing times in my lifetime to experience that.
Well, thanks again. And hopefully we'll be talking to you soon.
Okay, we'll see you sometime then, hopefully.
Current Reflections is a production of Tribal College, Journal of American Indian Higher Education. Thank you for listening.
No da trachinin sloan shin bashin, but anita shache traban da chanale. I am Marvin Tom, the subscription manager for the Tribal College Journal. Today, tribal colleges and universities are uplifting Native communities, and Tribal College Journal is their voice. So don't hesitate, subscribe to the Tribal College Journal today and help support American Indian higher education. For just $29, you will receive our quarterly publication plus the annual edition of TCJ Student, which features creative writing and art. It is as easy as a quick phone call or email. You can reach me at 970-764-4238 or at marvin@tribalcollegejournal.org. I look forward to hearing from you. AIHEC.